Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah ta'ala, everybody in the best state of iman, trying to grow in this deen and stay focused and in good health. Trying to, I know a lot of people having these storms, this bad weather, and, a lot of sicknesses and pneumonia and different things going around. So, inshallah, everybody trying to keep their health up and avoid the sickness. So we're going to discuss a little bit about fiqh today on a very basic rule of thumb level, just to help, newer Muslims and individuals who don't really truly, we know the word fiqh, we know, the word madhabs, and, but like for the ones, like just a real general understanding, because it's very important for when rulings and stuff come about, right? So we're going to use maybe one or two prime examples, but we definitely going to use the example of wiping over the socks for wudu, because the reason why that's the focus of this topic, I was watching an Instagram video. Some Muslim brothers, how they go through, they do some do them in a skit fashion, and then, some just do it in where it's not like a skit, where it's not really no comedy, and they teach people different rulings. So anyway, the brother was made wudu in the masjid, and he had on some, your basic white cotton socks, but they wasn't really thick, and they was a little bit older, more like a summertime type of sock as opposed to some winter or like socks that you wear, because I work in a factory and we had to wear steel toe boots, so they had like work construction socks that's real thick, you know what I'm saying, and they good for in the winter, and they good for when you got on steel toe boots and stuff. So they wasn't like your thick work construction sock. So anyway, after he got through making wudu and wiped over his sock, a brother came up to him and told him, that sock is too thin. You can't wipe over a sock that thin. I could see through it. Like you could see through that sock. Water goes through it when you wipe it. So he was discussing the rulings. Now, alhamdulillah, I thank Allah Azza wa Jal that I knew what he was talking about. But in the comments, man, it was arguing, because the dude was like from India, and it was an African American brother, and the Indian dude was or Pakistani, Indo-Pakistani. He was correcting the African American brother. So because he had a turban on, they automatically was declaring the dude a Deobandi. Don't listen to no Deobandis, which in some instances, I agree. You know what I'm saying? I agree. But, they just automatically start calling the dude a Deobandi. The comments was crazy. And they was arguing, and I was told wiping over socks was permissible. I was told this, I was told that. But one thing that people don't take into account is who told them. And this is something that I be trying to get people to understand, that I be face to face with. I understand what you was told, but who told you? You understand? And then who told him? Not saying that you had to run down a whole line, but just because the person you like or a person you just met and they told you they was Muslim, but they never had any real Islamic education, and they don't really read no books, they don't study. These be the ones who always talking and they don't know what they be talking about. And because they may have been that way 10, 15 years, they think they know what they're talking about because they may have been in the community 10 years. And then some people came into the community as a new Muslim, and because they've been there for 10 years, they don't know who else to listen to. So because they've been listening to this person and nobody came around and corrected them, they don't know that they're wrong. That's why I say you got to have a little bit of leniency when it comes to different things with Muslims, because you don't know their understanding. You got to see what's to their understanding first. Because sometimes, let's say a person, they starting to do studies about religion, okay? And then they just start watching, because like nowadays, people could just look at the internet. So they go watch internets about the Buddhists, they watch YouTube about Buddhists, Nation of Islam, Moorish American, your African American person. They just searching for something. They look at the Hebrew Israelites, and then something clicking to them about, I want to be Muslim. Right? It may be a Mufti Mink video, and we know he a Deobandi. Well, I can't say that because everybody don't know that, but we know Mufti Mink is Deobandi, right? But he may say something to have a mannerism, and it may inspire somebody. Yasir Kardi might inspire somebody. Okay? You never know who their inspiration is on the internet. So then what they end up doing is they don't know any Muslims. There ain't no Muslims in their family. So they might just look up masjids in their city. And then whichever masjid is the closest one to them, or they're familiar with the area, they'll just go to that masjid and tell somebody, hey, I want to become Muslim. You see what I'm saying? And then they might go in there, and it just might be a Tablighi masjid, right? It might be a Maliki masjid. It might be a Salafi masjid. And it might be an Ashari masjid. And you got all four of them at once, or it might be a Habashi. They might be Habashi. And this person don't know no difference. They don't know there's madhabs. They don't know there's different type of Muslims. They may have just heard Shiite, Sunni, and Sufi. Due to American teaching, when you in school, your general teaching about hating Muslims, that's one of the things that they'll throw out, that the Muslims kill each other. The Shiites and the Sunnis been fighting all this time, and the Sufis is basically like the hippies of the Muslims. Like how that's something I actually heard in school, that the Sufis is basically like the hippies of the Muslims. You know what I'm saying? They chant, they spin in circles, they smell flowers, Allah's in flowers. They like how the hippies was. That's what I heard in school. So anyway, but they don't know there's Salafis, Asharis, Atharis, Deobandis, Tablighis, Mutradidis, Matrididis, Jahmiya. So they go to to the closest masjid, or they might bump into somebody at work that they know is Muslim, or at school. They might be in college. And then they ask them, and then that person just take them to their masjid. They don't know what the Aqidah is there. And then they just go there. There's some people they get along with, some people they don't. Whatever they told, they do. Because just like when people go to church, you don't have in your mind that your church is going to dupe you. Some people don't know that you can get duped in a masjid. Some people taught automatically to hate everything that ain't them when they come through the door. You can't listen to none of this. If it ain't this type of person, that's not permissible, and all this stuff. And then they're never ever formally educated, because the masjid may not have no classes. You just come to Jum'ah, and then you just pray. And with the way the masjids is, I won't say the majority, because I want to be fair. But a lot of masjids don't have a qualified person giving the khutbahs. They may be from overseas. They may have been Muslim all of their life. but they may have been, like I said, you don't know what type of Islam they was up on. And when you the imam of a masjid, if you're not already rich, you get a salary. So being the imam, giving the kubars and leading the prayers in Ramadan, it's their job. And a masjid generally own a house, and you could live in that house, you know, kind of like the church take care of their pastor. If it isn't their own church and they use some of the tithing money to take care of themselves and the church, unless they have a job. So like if it's an imam and he don't have no job or nothing, so long story short, a lot of them don't really be qualified like that. And you could tell by the kubars, they'll just pick a topic and talk. Okay? So the point is, man, that's all some people getting. It might be, they might want to be into, they might go into a masjid and there's foreigners and they feel like it's not such a warm welcoming because they are black and they may have been heard. And see, to be honest with you, in some cases, it may just be because they don't know you. And then sometimes they have bad dealings with black people. So they be a little standoffish until they see who you are. You know what I'm saying? Because once they get to know you, I'm not saying this every case, but some people feel like, okay, it was a little off-putting. Then they go somewhere else where they see some black people at. And then this might lead them to Ashari, Salafi, or War of Deen. Right? And they may all have a little bit of extremism in what they feel. Okay? War of Deen or nothing. Salafi that we accept or nothing. Ashari that we accept or nothing. But none of them are graduates. None of them got no PhDs. You understand? So some people just getting whatever is in their environment. So that's why you have a lot of the people just fighting and bickering. So learn to figure out how people are understanding, but you're going to have to always educate yourself. You're going to have to get involved in some education, man. So that's why we're going to discuss fiqh. So like I said, to see all the fighting and arguing about the socks, right? Just totally disrespecting each other, man. And the sad part was this. What the brother was saying in the video, whether he was Deobandi, Tabliki or not, he was correct. According to the majority of the scholars. And the majority of the scholars can have many different meanings. That's why we finna discuss fiqh. And I'm going to tilt this back because I got to get on this whiteboard. But from a course book, let me pull up a section. What a lot of people don't understand about fiqh when fiqh is involved, and this is why how you can end up with different rulings, right? So when fiqh is involved, and I want to be careful how I word this. When it comes to fiqh, one of the aspects of determining a fiqh ruling is the customs of the people, right? So some people are wording and say some fiqh rulings, the customs of the people can overdo an Islamic ruling. But see, because sometimes when you have a level of education, you understand what you're saying, even if you say Islamic ruling as opposed to fiqh ruling. And then you know people who are on your level, they understand what you're saying. But people who haven't been through those steps of tarbiyah, an Islamic ruling to them and a fiqh ruling is all exactly the same. But see, you can have something, a ruling based off of fiqh that has nothing to do with Quran and Sunnah. And I know this don't make any sense. That's why I'm saying some things in madhabs actually go against what's authentic in Quran and Sunnah. let me show how that happened. Let me show how that happened before we get into the fiqh thing. So inshallah, this will make more sense. So we just gonna say, for example, because we only see the world through what we know. You got to go back and look at history. So we gonna say this right here. Of course, you got the Quran, right? And then you have hadiths, which is the Sunnah. So you use both of these to come up with a ruling. Okay? You use Quran and hadiths to come up with rulings. Right? We gonna leave ijma off for just a moment. So then, let's say for instance, so there's Quran. With the Quran you have tafsirs, explanation of the Quran ayats, right? I ain't gotta put explanation right there. So then you have hadiths. We're gonna say Quran tafsirs, but we're gonna say all together there's 10,000 hadiths. Out of 10,000 hadiths, 7,000 is sahih, authentic, right? Then you have 2,000 that's good, hasan. What hasan? You're right. That's hasan, right? And then you have 1,000 that's weak or fabricated, right? So just like right now, a lot of the hadiths that we may have been told, we heard them from somebody else. We heard them quoted in a khutbah, a YouTube video. We heard different sayings that has been put off as hadiths. Like there's some things from the madhabs, like there's some things that Imam Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, stated, and they've been passed off as hadiths. Okay? So you hear these sayings and this and that, but the thing is, you don't know which category it's in. So now, we're going to fast forward to now. Now, the tafsirs and hadiths have been collected and sifted. So they've been collected and sifted through. So being that they've been sifted, we know the category if we look. If we look. So the people of the past, they didn't have access to all these tafsirs. So let's say in the area where Abu Hanifa or Hunafi, right, where the Hanafi madhab came from. So let's say in his region, floating around was 1,000 hadiths, unsifted. Okay? So that means there's 9,000 hadiths that he doesn't have access to. And they aren't unsifted. So they sahih, some hasan, some weak, and some fabricated. But they just got them all in one big bowl. So when people came and asked him questions, he gave a fiqh ruling based off of the information and dalil that he had. And this is all of them. So he didn't have all the collections of tafsirs and explanations of ayats. He didn't have all the hadiths and explanations of the hadiths. Sometimes the way they got the hadith, they just went off how they understood it. You understand? So from them, his students, they formed a madhab, which is a school of thought. Now, what we gonna get into, some of those rulings that they made was based off of the customs of the people. The customs of the people. What did they seem suitable? And that's what all that was to get y'all to understand how the customs of the people can override certain fiqh rulings. But I don't say an Islamic ruling, because an Islamic ruling is Quran and Sunnah. So the customs of the people doesn't overrule Quran and Sunnah. Now, some of the fiqh rulings, which came from their opinions, and this is what people need to understand with all of them. There was certain information in hadiths that they didn't have access to. But see, Shafi'i and Hanbali, Imam Hanbal, may Allah be pleased with them, they were muhaddis. They was people of hadith. You understand? So they had hadiths was their thing. So their madhab is based off of more Quran and Sunnah than any others as far as hadiths. Okay? So what we're going to get to is this thing with the customs of the people. So sometimes some of these rulings that have been adopted in America, right? Wharf Dean was one person who really used to misquote it, talking about the custom of the people always still stands. So that's why you hear a lot of them talk about, they cloak it, they use the word culture. See, sometimes the customs of the people is what decides what the culture is. Customs make up culture. So because of the way they was going through their thing, and them really not understanding no Arabic at all for real, they just say our culture. But see, it's really about the customs. So they feel like because this is our culture, it can overdo. We could put some of this Quran and Sunnah aside and go with our culture. Like, I'm going to tell y'all something. It's not Islamic culture, but it's the culture of the Muslims. Culture of Muslims, right? It's so much of a culture of Muslims that people think is from Islam. And that's taking the shoes off before you enter a house. Okay? That's so much of a culture, and the Muslims took it from somewhere else. The Muslims did not start the custom of taking your shoes off before you enter a house. But it's so much of a cultural norm, that's a custom that has shifted the culture of Muslims where the majority of Muslims feel like if you don't take your shoes off before you enter a Muslim house, it's almost like it's a sin. You know what I'm saying? But do you necessarily see a Quran ayat where Allah is informing the Muslims to take their shoes off before they enter a house? Do you see with a Rasul or his companions teaching that is from Islam to take your shoes off before you enter a house? But being that it's the culture of the people, so let's say a person goes and asks a scholar of fiqh, but he just happened to be Hanafi. Right? So they go and ask a person who's Hanafi, and he's a scholar of Hanafi fiqh, and he says, I was told that to go into, before I go into another Muslim house, I have to take my shoes off. Now, it might be in a Hanafi madhab that is what? Wajib. But this might be a ruling that was based off of the culture of them at their time. Then a Maliki, somebody from Maliki fiqh might say it's mustahab, recommended. So they say mandatory, and then they'll say recommended. Right? So then, where are you stuck at? So one say, if you want to do it, it's highly recommended to do it. Then one say it's mandatory that you do it. It's just going to be dependent on who you ask. But then, the way that they might word is like this. If it's customary of the people to remove the shoes, if it's customary of the people to remove the shoes, then remove your shoes. But if it isn't customary, then keep your shoes on. Now you might get a ruling like that from Hanbali or Shafi'i. If it's customary of the people to remove your shoes before you go in their house, then remove your shoes. If it's not, then keep your shoes on. So you might have to be on the basis, you might have to deal with people accordingly. If you go over this Muslim house, they keep their shoes on, keep your shoes on. You go over this Muslim house, they might take their shoes off, then take your shoes off. Not saying, now let me make clear, I'm not saying that these madhabs say this exact thing. I'm just giving y'all a general example of what happens in fiqh before we get to the socks. So it's customary of the people because we gonna keep it 100. In this day and time, you have people who have, and not to keep getting on this, you have people who have dogs in their home. Okay? Muslims. You have Muslims who breed dogs. They may have several dogs. It may be different spots through their house where they done have feces in it. They done urinated in it. The dogs could have had worms as puppies. It could be parasites and stuff. Dog done threw up in the house somewhere. Yeah, they done tried to clean it, but sometimes it may be a spot that they missed. I'm a person who had dogs. Okay? You might come in their house and take their shoes off, and then you walk through somewhere where it could have been a spot on a rug or something that a dog peed on, and then it dried up before this person came and noticed it, who lived there. And then you might walk over there with your socks. So some people who I know that be having dogs in their house, they don't necessarily take their shoes off. They got dogs already. So you might want to keep your shoes on in there too if they got dogs and animals. It's just customary of what's going on. So I just wanted to give y'all an example how they say the customs of the people can outdo certain rulings. But like I say, I use the wording fiqh ruling and Islamic ruling because I want to separate the two for new Muslims. So now we're gonna go through the book and show you an example of what I mean, right? So societal customs and norms, right? It's in this section. They refer to it as earth, right? That's why sometimes you will hear them say, like, what's the earth? URF. What's this? What's the customs of the people? How do they see it? Now, one thing that I want to throw in to show where the mixture gets in America, we're in a Kafir country. So the customs aren't generally in line with Islam. Some of the scholars and certain people, when they did these rulings, the customs of the people, they was in Muslim countries. It may not have been ruled by a Muslim government, but the majority of the people is Muslim, where Islam pretty much governs the society. But the president may not be Muslim. Like, it's 10 million people in this country, and 9.5 million of them is Muslim. So they dictate everything. So some of these areas, the customs fall in line with Muslim culture, if it ain't necessarily Islamic culture. You understand? So they'll make certain rulings and stuff based off of this Kafir American culture. For instance, the norm is for women to wear weave here. Okay? It's rare to see an African American woman, even now where they even up there in age, you can even see 60, 70-year-old women running around with weaves and wigs. Now wigs, older women always wore wigs back in the day. My grandmother wore them. So you may have somebody issue a ruling and say, because it's a cultural norm that the African American women wear weave where you from, it's permissible to wear weave because it's from the culture. This is true story, because I'm telling y'all, because I've seen these rulings issued, okay, where they were saying to the women, as long as the weave wasn't made out of like wool, that because that's still animal hair, or it ain't real human hair, so they was wearing yarn. Which yarn, until they started making these different yarns out of a different type of fabric, but yarn and stuff, a lot of this stuff still had wool in it from back in the days. So let me break down the custom thing so we can get to wiping over the socks. So your rule of thumb is, linguistically, the word earth means that which is known, familiar, or common. The jurist, basically, the fuqaha, the people of fiqh, the jurists define earth as recurring practices that are acceptable to the people of sound nature. So it's not crazy people who came up with this. For instance, for the young youth here, gang banging is a cultural norm, but it didn't really come to the forefront by sound people, because it's killing your own people over colors and neighborhoods and territories that you don't even own. You may get a little money there, and then that it became so much senseless killing. Now you just have the youth killing for nothing, killing over something that they ain't even have to argue about, because killing has become part of the cultural norm, right? So the cultural that's normal by sound people of sound intellect, right? It is the collective practice of a large number of people. So this is why they're bringing this in. This is what I'm telling y'all about the customs, right? So earth is only considered to be a valid source of law when it does not go against the principles of Sharia, right? It can serve as the basis of a legal ruling, but in a limited sense. Customs that don't go against the teachings of the Quran and Sunnah are acceptable as a basis of law. So that's why I say fiqh ruling and Islamic ruling. Because when you're going to use the customs of the people, it can't go against the Quran and Sunnah. But sometimes with this fiqh, where it's their opinion, where they didn't necessarily have access to all of this and they made a ruling, the customs of the people can override that because it doesn't have a strong foundation in Quran and Sunnah. It's the opinion of a scholar. You understand? So if the customs of the people go against authentic explanations of the Quran, how the Quran should be interpreted, tafsirs, and then if it goes against authentic Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you can't go against that. You see what I'm saying? So custom can't go against that. So that's why I say with the War of Deen community, their culture and the customs, they tend to think that it can override Islamic rulings, which come from the Quran and Sunnah, and it doesn't. But not just them, other particular madhabs. Just like, for instance, one thing I know from the older generation of War of Deen community, I see some of the younger, the newer ones don't necessarily do it that much. But when they go, like for instance, one of the rulings they had is that a woman doesn't have to cover up unless she's going in a masjid. And then the only thing she had to do is just throw a scarf over and cover up her hair. Her arms could be out. She could have on form-fitting clothes. You know what I'm saying? Nail polish, lipstick, makeup, earrings, hair bang hanging out, hair down all right here. As long as they take a scarf and cover over, that's one of their rulings. You know what I'm saying? Or as long as her husband is with her, she don't have to cover her hair. But full covering hour and all that, that's Arab culture, not black culture. And culture can override Islamic rulings. This is how a lot of that come into play, because you have people who got a little terminology and just the gist of certain things, and then they make their own rulings off of it when they're not qualified. And I'm saying, I'm making it clear, not just the War of Deen community, but I just wanted to give an example. Okay, so let's get to, so let's see if it's a little bit. So we give a little bit more, right? For example, earth is used to determine the amount of expenditure that a husband must provide for his wife. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, wealthy men should give and spend on their wives based on their wealth. Those who have limited resources should spend based on what Allah has provided for them. This verse doesn't specify the exact amount of maintenance, so the scholars deem it to be determined by custom, right? That which women of similar social and family status receive. The rules of fiqh that are based in juristic opinion, speculative analogy, which is qiyas, and ijtihad are often formulated in the light of prevailing customs. So basically all this was me explaining that paragraph. Some of the rulings and stuff that they came up with was based off of opinions of the jurists, okay, the scholars of fiqh, the fuqaha, speculative analogy, qiyas, right? They speculated and came up and did qiyas, intellectual reasoning, right, or ijtihad are often formulated off the light of prevailing customs. So sometimes they didn't have all the information. So it was in accordance with the customs. But one thing about it is, when you have to understand about customs, the customs in Africa aren't the same as the customs in America. The customs in India aren't the same as the customs in America. So sometimes certain things have to be adjusted based off of where you are. So this is why you have different rulings. And you have to understand, though, if the custom goes against the Quran and Sunnah, it don't matter what opinion they came up with. Okay? Quran and Sunnah overrides everything. So like, for instance, Muslim culture is to take your shoes off before you enter a home. That doesn't go against Quran and Sunnah. So therefore, you can see where a ruling is. I was told to take my shoes off before I enter a house. One madhab might say, yeah, it's mandatory that you do it. It's from the custom of the people. Then one might say, well, it's just highly recommended because of the good that's in it, and you protecting the carpet from filth on your shoes. And then the other two madhabs may say, if it's customary for the people that you're around when you enter in a house to take the shoes off, then take your shoes off. If it's not customary and they keep their shoes on, then you keep your shoes on. This is how it works. So sometimes it's just dependent on who you ask if you're not going to look into yourself. So then what they say, because let me show y'all what they do. So this madhab has one opinion. This madhab has one opinion, and then these two madhabs agree. So that will give, since two agree, that gives them what? Consensus. Okay. Consensus. So generally, if these two have consensus, then you're supposed to go with the ijma of the madhabs. But if you look at it, it's a way of both of these. If they taking their shoes off, then it's mandatory you take your shoes off. If they leaving them on, it's mandatory that you leaving them on. But it's still a recommendation. We recommend you to do whatever they're doing. You see what I'm saying? So this is how I work, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, how fiqh actually works. So they fall into a whole bunch of foolishness. So let me pause it for a second and clean off this board, and then we're gonna do the wiping over the socks thing, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, alhamdulillah. So you got to keep in mind what we consider to be customs and what we consider to be culture in the urban community is almost like a hip hop gangster movie, gang banging. A man got to do everything for me while I do the bare minimum. I don't want no bare minimum man, but I'm going to be a bare minimum woman. These things is creeping into the deen of Islam. You know what I'm saying? You pay all my bills, my luxuries, my expenses, and all this other stuff that's added in there. And I cook for you if I feel like it, if you're nice to me. That's our culture. So what we're considering culture and customs, our ruling shouldn't be based off of our ignorance, because these isn't the cultures and customs of sound people. Because Muslims, whether you love each other or hate each other, Muslims supposed to go through every single measure to work together. This husband, this is wife, this is friends, this is everything. And if they don't like each other, we give each other rights, but You go ahead and do what you're doing over there, and I'm going to go ahead and do what I'm doing over here. But we're not going to violate each other. You see what I'm saying? But now, it's, in our culture, it's do the least to get the most. There's no 50-50. There's no doing nothing. I'll never do nothing for my husband ever. And I sit back and be like, it ain't no way y'all done read from the series of the wives of the prophet. Some of them, the Rasul would be at another wife's house, and from the food that this wife had in her house, she would cook food there and send it to the Rasul at his other wife's house. How many Muslim sisters gonna do that? Even if she was trying to get at the other sister, some of them would, not to go into that. But I'm saying we can't make rulings off the ignorance of what we consider to be culture. Okay? Because it goes against Quran and Sunnah. So it's not working. But like I said, you have people who may know what the word earth mean, and they haven't really studied no fiqh. So they start trying to base rulings off of their limited understanding of what this really means. Right? Let's say, for instance, there was nothing sound about if the Rasul and them had a Sadaqah box. So now, this is where you can look in fiqh. And I'm saying this because some people say that your masjid is a masjid of bid'ah if you have a Sadaqah box. Okay? But the masjid, the Rasul masjid, didn't have lights, running water, expensive carpet, needed to be painted. Okay? Restrooms, wudu rooms that need to be cleaned, possibly a kitchen. Okay? Things that needed to be maintained. Toilet paper in there, a stench of things in there, right? Ceiling fans, heaters, air conditioners. Okay? But it showed that they did collect Sadaqah and Zakat. So if it's customary, if it's from the customs of the Muslims to have a Sadaqah box in the masjid, a fiqh ruling can be it's from the customs of the people to have a Sadaqah box in the masjid because they have lights, because they have expensive carpet. And then you have people who want to just donate for the Ramadan dinners or whatever else they got going on. They might have a program where they might have some type of Sunday school program and the kids need books. So if it's from the customs of the people to have a Sadaqah box in the masjid to make donating and things easier on the people, and that's one of the rulings that's with the custom. If it make it easier on the Muslims, then it's not a bid'ah. But due to people having a limited understanding, they make rulings that shouldn't be, to the good and to the bad. So when it comes to wiping over the socks, right? Let's just be quick with this. Me personally, I don't wipe over socks. I do not wipe over my socks. Alright? Because of the way I came into it. Right? And I'm gonna give y'all some rule. I'm gonna give y'all something on mistakes I've made, so I'm able to recognize them. In the very beginning, I had a Muslim brother who lived at the time he was living in DC. So he used to tell me how on the weekends and stuff he liked to throw his stove and stuff on, and chill around the house in his stove, read little books or whatever. So I'm like, man, now you got to understand, sometimes when you in smaller cities like this city I'm in now, there's no Islamic bookstores. There's no Islamic stores for anything. They get books, they get thobes, to get soaps, toothpaste, miswax, nothing. You have to order everything. So a lot of these smaller towns be like that. I was living in a college town. I was going to college at the time. So I'm like, man, where you get them from? Now, he could just go to a store, like even with the halal meat. I had to order my halal meat and have it shipped to me from like a city that's like an hour and a half, some city where it's a farm out there right outside of Chicago. And I get it air shipped to me, but I could drive. But the price of gas is really the same as them air shipping it to me in dry ice, right? So if you want quality, here, one of the little Muslim spots here, occasionally they have chicken, halal chickens, but I'm not a real big meat eater. So when I do eat meat, it's generally lamb and goat. They don't always have it, so I had to order it. So the point is, some places you don't have access to the stuff. So I'm asking him, like, man, where you get it from? So he was telling me, just get on the internet. There's places where you can order them from. Okay? Now, this is the same person who also heard me talking about some 5% stuff to show y'all how this deen work and how Allah Azza wa Jal moves in a certain way. Because this deen can be aided by a person that's not necessarily that righteous. The deen could be aided by a hypocrite. Okay? By a kafir. Okay? So, not saying he's a kafir or nothing like that, but this is the thing. He heard me talking crazy about some 5% of stuff, and he told me, man, you need to start reading hadiths. And he was right. And this was me getting my first book of hadiths because of the respect I have for him and the way he talked to me. I knew he was serious, but he wasn't a person who read hadiths. I didn't know that until I ordered it. But he sat around people and he basically, no disrespect to him, parroted what they parroted. We need hadiths, we need this, we need that. So he was right, I did need hadiths, but he wasn't a person of hadith himself. So when I went to order these clothes, I found a place. I just typed in Muslim clothing. And I found this place, right? And as I'm going through them, they had leather socks. So in my mind right now, because of what I heard him say, he liked to chill around the house on the weekends and his stove and stuff. To me, I don't know nothing about legislation. I don't even know to look at it as Arab clothing or Arab culture. To me, it's Muslim clothes. I want to look Muslim. So I ordered all type of different kufis. I ordered me 3 different colors of thobes, like a sky blue and two shades of gray, right? One was like a charcoal and one was like a light gray. Okay? And they had the leather socks. I didn't know nothing about the leather socks. So when I asked him about them, he had never heard of them. He's like, leather socks. So I ordered them anyway. They look Muslim. I ordered them I ordered 3 pairs, some brown ones, dark brown ones, and 2 pair of black ones. Right? I just want to look Muslim. I don't know nothing about legislations. So listen. So when they sent my order in, alhamdulillah, the truck had tipped over. So I had some Zamzam waters in there, and because the Zamzam waters, one of them had busted open, it leaked through the top of the box. So they automatically sent me a whole nother shipment of everything that I ordered. And they called me and told me what had happened. So they told me your order gonna be late. But then the post office people ended up dropping it off a day after they called me, but they had already sent the other one. So when I informed them, nothing is damaged, just that one little bottle of Zamzam water, they told me to just keep both packages for my honesty. Y'all don't really have to send nothing but one bottle of Zamzam water, and when I order again, y'all can just throw that in there. They said, no, we already sent it. You don't have to send it back. Keep both packages. So now I got extra socks. I got extra this and that. So now when I get into the book of Hadiths, let me show y'all a mistake I made. I'm wearing the mess out of these. I didn't even get the Hadiths till like maybe a year later. Okay? So I'm walking around. I got my little Islamic clothes, my leather socks. I just got them on. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know what's to them. So I ended up getting a book of Hadiths like a year later, right? And for the most part, I'm just doing the same thing he was doing. On the weekends, on my day off, I'm throwing them on, sitting around the crib. Certain people coming over, I'm barbecuing, I got them on. And I'm just looking Muslim for the purposes of just looking Muslim. I feel like it's the new cool or whatever. I wasn't really, I got kefias and all that. I'm just trying to look Muslim. So I recognize that when I see it, which is nothing wrong with that, but I didn't understand legislations, right? So, alhamdulillah, when I ended up getting a book of Hadiths, I come across the Hadith about Kufains, leather socks, right? So I'm like, alhamdulillah. So then it showed me about, it explained the ruling on wiping over them. If you traveling, how many days you can have them on. And then if you in your city, how long you can wipe over them. And when you're not traveling. So now, I'm really getting into them. So now I know why I have them. Okay. And I used to be outside. Like I was always gone. Now look, this is the funny thing. Even though I had ordered all this stuff, I had got prayer rugs and everything, right? I was just ordering anything Islamic. I didn't even know how to make salat. I had the prayer rugs and didn't even know how to use them. But they was something for me to show the people and everything. Wallahi, I'm just keeping it transparent. So so now to keep in mind, a year passed, I end up getting a book of Hadiths. Now I know why I have the leather socks. But still, they just decoration for me. I ain't going to no masjid. I'm not doing none of that. So I'm reading Hadiths. So then I ended up getting a full volume set, Indian print. But now I'm just reading it like it's a book. I'm not reading it like I should be extracting from this, learning how to put this stuff in the root. I don't even know how to read it that way. Because I don't know nobody else with Hadiths or anybody that read them. Even the person who told me to get them. Because like I said, once I started reading them, that's when I realized this dude don't even read them. Because I'm telling him about what's in it. Okay? I'm telling him what's to him. So anyway, another year passed. And I'm about halfway through the Hadiths and I got tafsir. So now I'm saying I need to start driving to another city and go to the masjid. I ended up learning how to pray. So now I'm praying for real. I'm doing Taraweeh, because I'm corresponding with some people in New York and Philly, right? And they helping me get myself together. So when I started going to the masjid, I wasn't prepared for them to turn me all the way back around to where I had to learn my deen all over again. So to speed the story up, now I know why I got the leather socks. And I used to be outside. Like I wasn't in the house. I used to go hang out. I used to go kick it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna keep it 100. You know what I'm saying? I'd be around in Natchez. You know what I'm saying? In a little college town. When I would come here, anywhere I went, I'm going to be around. I'm just gonna keep it Dougie, man. I'm around that element. You know what I'm saying? I'm around gang members, people who smoke and chiefing, females. So I would keep my leather socks on for that one day, or I would have more than one pair. Like if I was going out of town for 3 days, I got more than one pair so I could switch them up. And wherever I'm at, even if they gang banging, smoking, hustling, females all around, now I could go and make wudu and wipe over my socks and find me somewhere to pray, even if it was outside. So I kept them on. I always had on some. So when I started coming to a masjid, it's custom for me to have them on. I even got them big enough to where I could put a pair of like ankle socks on inside of them because your feet can sweat. to absorb the sweat, and then I can still fit them inside my shoes. So when I come to the masjid and some of the foreigners see me in them, they sitting up like, it's not permissible for you to wear them. You're only supposed to wear them when you're traveling. No disrespect, because I almost said a certain word. I am traveling. I'm driving here from out of town. I am traveling. But they was really trying to get me to take them off. Where'd you get those? How'd you get them? You know what I'm saying? Wallahi, they was trying to get me to take them off. And it's blowing my mind, like, how y'all don't know this? So, what they did know you was supposed to be traveling, but I'm like, I am traveling. No, it's you know, not to get into that. They just started making up stuff. Okay? So, some people, I seen that they was wiping over their socks. Now, because I done read hadiths, I'm sitting up saying, yo, you can't wipe over them socks. They got to be leather. So that's why I'm saying, to this day, I still don't wipe over socks. And then especially once I learn how you're supposed to wipe over them. There's difference of opinions of how you need to wipe over them. Whether they leather, whether they cotton. So their socks, so you know, it led to an argument where us looking through the Leo. So we ended up finding out. So let me get to the madhaps, because my bad, man. I'm going into this story. So when we started looking for the Leo, and the people in the masjid told them they could wipe over their socks, and they was Tabliki, Deobandi, Hanafis. Okay, the socks was very thin. Like you could really see through them. The water would go through them. And we had been together, and we ended up in I had on the leather ones. They trying to make me take the leather socks off, but they telling him he can wear these. And this dude, just to make a long story short, his socks done sweated and stuff to where the socks stank and his feet stank. And I'm like, man, just take the socks off and wipe them. Wipe your feet. They telling him he can wipe these dirty, smelly, stinking socks. So when we started to go look into the ruling on the internet, I'm going straight to the books of hadiths. Wallahi, dude tried to discredit the hadiths, talking about, no, it ain't in the Arabic. And then when I see him try to read the Arabic like it was English when he went the wrong way, I couldn't read Arabic at the time, but I knew it was from right to left, not left to right. So when I see him do that, I said, yeah. And then wallahi, he was like, this is in parentheses. The Wahhabis did that. It got leather socks in parentheses. The Wahhabis did that. The Wahhabi Saudi government did that. Wallahi, that's what he said. So he was like, it doesn't mean leather socks. So none of them spoke Arabic. So anyway, when we started looking at the rulings, they were saying, when we looked at the rulings on the internet, what we could find, they were saying the reason why you can't wipe over thin socks is because sweat can come through them. And then when you wipe over, you just make the sweat is a najis. When you sweating from like your feet, your underarms, your private parts, that type of sweat is different than some sweat running down your forehead. Okay? So they was referring to that sweat as a najis. And part of making wudu is to remove najis. So that's why it can't be a thin sock. Okay? Plus, you really don't have a technical reason to wipe over those socks. You're in the masjid. Take the socks off and wudu your feet. It ain't like you at work. It ain't like you in a situation where it calls for you to wipe over your socks. Now, if they're leather socks, this is a different story. This is what it's saying. And then it was showing the rulings on the ones who say that it had to be thick. And this was some of the explanation why. If you are sweating, if the socks is thick, they won't come to the top of the sock. The top of your sock may still be dry when you wipe over the top of it. Now, if the sweat has come through it, then you can't wipe over it. And if the water can go through it and absorb down to your foot, this is the rulings. Because they saying the same ruling applies to when it's leather. The sweat can't come through it. Okay? And then it said another ruling is, because with the kufines, anybody who know they got a pad on the bottom, you can walk around in them like they flip-flops. They traveled and walked in them. Okay? So it's like if you walking outside in your socks and you can't walk and travel in them, then you can't wipe over them. So what we started to see was, so this is where the argument come in. Some people don't know the full rulings, and it's from the etiquettes. It's starting to change that a person of knowledge, when you ask them for a ruling, they don't necessarily tell you if it's Hanafi, if it's Maliki, because some people don't reveal what their fiqh is. So they just give you the ruling because they feel like this. And then we can wrap it up. Right? So we're going to say H, M, Hanafi madhab. Now this is just an example. I'm not saying this is 100% what they say. So if Hanafi madhab says it don't matter, they could be thin or thick. Right? They can be below the ankle. As long as they cover the foot. Although you have to, because this is part of the real rulings. Right? It could be below the ankle. And that's where I'm going to get into the mistake that I made. And I'm going to show y'all. So then you got the Maliki madhab. Imam Malik, not saying this is his actual thing, but they do have rulings. I'm just giving an example for people getting my comments. He say thick, they gotta be thick socks. Shafi'i madhab says leather only. So now you got what they're going to refer to as three positions. It don't matter, thick socks or leather only. We're going to put a B right there for Hanbali madhab. So Hanbali madhab says thick with conditions. So he might have some conditions that the Maliki madhab don't have. So this is what they do. Because you have 4 different opinions, you can pick which one of these you want to go with. So the choice is basically yours. This is a ruling that some of it come up with. But like I said, some people of knowledge who have more understanding, that's why the majority go with these 3 right here. It's very few that say that the sock can be thin or below the ankle. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all know how, like in America, but let me tell you why. Because in America, and I'm going to show y'all how, because some people be like, well, how can they come up with that ruling? Not only in America, for men, they come in and out of style. When I was growing up, women used to wear them, they called them footies. And they used to wear them around the house like house shoes. My mother and them used to. They basically was a sock. It looked like a sock, but it just covered up your foot. It didn't come past your ankle. And they was able to put them in their little cute shoes that look better with socks off, but to protect their toes, and the little shoes from them little hard bottom shoes, it basically protect their foot. And some of them had like a little ball on them. if they wore like ankle bracelets and they had something that was thicker that was made for like tennis shoes, and they can wear them and show off their ankle bracelets. So then as time evolved, by the time I got into high school, they started making them for men. You know what I'm saying? And some of them come up above the ankle a little bit, and then the other ones below the ankle. So, but they was thinner. So some people, due to that being a custom of the people, to wear those type of socks. If in your area, that's the custom of the people, where it's a thin sock that comes below your ankle, you can wipe over it because it's part of the custom of the people. Me personally, I don't wipe over my socks unless they're leather. If I have on some leather shoes or some boots, like I'm praying at work, and there's not an area where you could take your shoes off, a dirty, filthy factory and this and that, I'm going to wipe over the leather boot and clean off like if there's any nadges, because it still fit the same ruling, but no sweat can come through it, and then they're leather, so you could go over it just like the kufine. So, but I'm in an area where I'm praying in them. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm praying on a concrete floor. So it's in an area where I can pray in my boots. You know what I'm saying? But I wipe over them and I remove any filth from them. Okay? Which this is a ruling because I'm under one of those circumstances where I'm at work and I don't get off in a time where I'm not going to miss all the prayers. I mean, where I'm not going to be able to make them up or leave and go to the masjid. You understand? So, one of the mistakes, like how I said, that I made. So again, me personally, I don't wipe over socks. Thick, thin. You know what I'm saying? They got to be a very serious circumstances where I end up wiping over my socks. I'm just going to take them off if I don't have some leather ones on in my shoes. And I always fit the ruling. I'm going to make wudu and go into wudu before. I'm going to make sure I'm in full, complete wudu before I put them on and leave the house. That way it's permissible for me to wipe over them. This is a condition that a lot of people don't meet, because a lot of people, when they get dressed and they put on regular socks, a lot of them don't make sure that they in wudu before they leave. Now, they just happen to be praying, but a lot of them don't understand that ruling. I'm already in wudu because I done seen some people who, like I said, with the same person. That person made wudu with the same person with the argument who had on them thin socks. He had made wudu for Fajr, but we've been together and we at the masjid for Maghrib. He wasn't in wudu and stuff. He didn't make wudu and stuff before he put these socks on, before he did what he did. And that is a thing that a lot of people fall into, because they haven't been told that part. They just been told they can wipe over them. No, you got to be in complete wudu. So if you're going to be wiping over socks, make wudu, dry your feet, then put them socks on that you plan on walking, praying in if it come about. Make sure your conditions is met. And I'm saying this because I've talked to people who was falling short of it. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to books, a mistake that I made. Now I got all of these leather socks. Crazy about them. So I'm going back through and reviewing my hadiths. Like I said in the beginning, I just read them. I didn't know what to do with them. I just knew you read them. Okay? So now that I'm going into them and knowing, okay, these things, because like I said, I got to a point, I knew all these hadiths, but I didn't know how to implement them. But I was reading books. So I didn't know what a muhrim was. Basically a person who's making hajj, umrah. So it's a hadith about a muhrim, but at the bottom it's saying, for the one who can't find shoes, you can wear leather socks, but you have to cut them to where they below your ankle. So now I'm looking at myself like, yo, I've been running around in these all these years, and they ain't permissible. They got to be below your ankle. So now I'm like, why they even sell them above your ankle? So I remember coming up with this plan to where I took some scissors because they had a zipper. So I said, I'm going to cut them below my ankle. And then I'm going to, with a zipper pop out, then I'm just going to take some needle and thread, and I'm going to sew that part up. It didn't work. But I'm naive. You know what I'm saying? I'm still fairly young at the time, though. So now I cut another pair, and it didn't work. So I said, I'm not going to keep cutting these up and tearing them up. So I gave away all my leather socks. I gave away all my leather socks that I cut up 2 pair. The brown pair, because I didn't care for them. I had 2 pair of them, because like I said, they sent me a double up order. So I cut up both of the brown pair. I had some I hadn't even wore. So I gave them away. Because and then when I seen people in them, but like these people who didn't care about rulings, to them it was just about looking Muslim. I got me a thobe, I got me this. I don't know why I should have, I don't know no rulings, I don't know no legislations. I just look Muslim. So they just wanted to wear them so they could be like, look at me, man, I'm looking Muslim. I'm on my deen. But if you ask them, so you on your deen, what's with the leather socks? I don't know. They just Muslim clothes. You know what I'm saying? Then you're not on your deen because you don't even know what they're for. You don't know the legislations. So, but like I said, they wanted them. I gave it to them. But then like certain people who I knew, like when I would be traveling, I'm telling them, man, you know you gotta cut them where they go below your ankle. So then I started looking up leather cuffs that's below your ankles. And then I found them. So I was like, man, had I knew, I would have been looking them up. The only problem was the only colors they had available was pink. They was catered to women. They was pink. So I wasn't finna get them. So now I can't find none. So I just went for years. Without wearing leather socks. Gave them all away. Then I ended up ordering a pair because when I started working in a factory and it wasn't like a prayer area, and this is how I came back to me. But I actually had people ended up giving their socks away. And I would show them that bottom part of the hadith. But it's talking about a person on Hajj or Umrah. But me, so like that's what I'm saying. People who think because they have books or may have read some, but they didn't really have a teacher or they didn't really have enough of an understanding. I didn't know what a muhrim was. I'm reading it, and like I say, I'm just reading them. I don't really know. I'm just reading the books of hadiths because you should read them. I'm not looking to act up on something or people arguing, and then sometimes you would just go to look at it to win an argument. You see what I'm saying? So I talked, alhamdulillah, I wasn't a lot of people, but I talked a couple of people out of giving their socks away too. Not knowing no better. Thinking because I got Bukhari and because I done read a hadith, I'm putting people on what they need to be on. And then so when I started working at this factory, my bad, man, I be having to hurry up and turn that off, man. The people who own the copyrights to those things started messing with my YouTubes. like restricting them. It won't show in Russia and this and that because that little bit of a adhan called. So they had a copyright on it. So alhamdulillah, I had to send my video to the YouTube people where they erase that little sound of the adhan. Like if it played for like a longer amount of time, then they'll strike your video. They'll put a copyright on it. You know what I'm saying? And it'll restrict the areas where it could be seen. So I had to hurry up and jump and turn them off. But anyway, I confused some people. So when I started working at this factory, I wasn't sure if I could pray in the boots, the floors and stuff. I got a little travel prayer rug to put down. So anyway, I ended up going and digging and really looking into everything and then seeing. But listen, I started cutting up all my leather socks in like 2010, 2011. And then it wasn't until I went and re-looked into it for these rulings until like maybe 2015. So it took about 5-6 years for my job, so I went and re-looked at it, and then I ordered me a pair and seeing that the mistake was on me, and then I would wear them inside of my boots. But the factory was so hot, so I would take my boots off and I would be able to wipe over my leather socks. But in the factory so hot, the leather socks would end up tearing up in my boot and then rubbing across my skin, where I was getting like these like blisters, like the skin on my feet was peeling, getting raw because it's getting so sweaty in the boot. So that's when I had to go re-look into wiping over the boot and the shoes. You see what I'm saying? And what I needed to do, because I couldn't pray barefooted or in some plain socks, not in that factory, not where we was praying at. And it ain't like you could just go outside and they had an area that was accommodating. So the point is, because I had a book and because I had leather socks, I thought I knew something. And then like with me, I'm Aflo Hadith. So seeing, even though it was a Hadith I misunderstood, by me thinking I was going against the Sunnah, I cut 2 pair, couldn't make it work, so I gave the rest of them away immediately. So it was alhamdulillah for that I didn't just make up my own ruling and stick with it. But the problem is I misunderstood it. It wasn't until years later, after I got in the classroom and then I had to go re-look at the stuff, where I had a different understanding of hadiths and how to read them, where I was able to adjust that. And that's what people need to understand. Sometimes you need more of an understanding when you're digging into these books. And then when you're going and asking people questions, you have to have an understanding. You need to have enough of an understanding to see how they understand things. Because they might have a word or two here and, this is because of the custom of the people, that you could do this and do that. Just like some people, like some of the things they do, eating with your fingers or whatever, all the blessings and stuff in it, because it's the custom of the people here to eat with silverware, then you ain't supposed to do that. But they can get up out of here. And that's why, and like I said, this was mainly with the War of Deen community. Are y'all trying to be Arabs? We got our own culture. But I always have some comeback. You don't eat fried chicken with when you eat that with your fingers. You eat tacos with your hand. You know what I'm saying? You eat burgers and fries with your hand. You see what I'm saying? Why you don't use silverware for that? I was being a smart aleck then. You know what I'm saying? But it was because they had a little twist of the gist of how it come from fiqh. They was just misusing it. You see what I'm saying? They was just misusing it to get out of doing things that really come from Islam. Like I said, it can overrule certain opinions and stuff that's from fiqh, but what from Quran and Sunnah that can't be differed or no other opinions, it can't outrule that. So, alhamdulillah, man, that's just a little way to understand fiqh with the leather, with the socks. I would say the safest thing to do, because I'm aware of more rulings, like if the sock gets sweaty, it's najis, and this usually with a thin sock, where if you touch the top of your sock, this is something what it had in it. If you touch the top of your sock and it's damp, then you know it from sweat, you can't wipe over that. But if it's a thick sock and the water can't go through it and sweat can't come up through it, then you can wipe over that. You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to be wiping over your socks, make sure you in full wudu before you put those socks on. Not, I made wudu for Fajr, then I laid down, went to sleep, broke wudu. You have to be in wudu when you put them on. Not that I made wudu once that day. And then I done broke that wudu, and then I made dhuhr, and then I done broke that wudu, but I'm just walking around my house lazily. And now I want to get up and move around, and now I'm finna really get dressed and leave the house, and I'm not in wudu when I get dressed. Then I go end up at the masjid because I'm out and about, and I'm with some brothers. Let's go catch Maghrib at the masjid, and now I'm going to wipe over these socks when, okay, there's an opinion that they can be thin, but I'm in some thin, sweaty socks, and I wasn't in wudu before I put them on. You see what I'm saying? So make sure you're going to make wudu. This even if they leather. Make sure you're in wudu before you put them on. Alright? Make sure you're in wudu before you put them on. Okay? And learn how to wipe over them. Now for the new shahadas, I'm going to leave that in the air. There's a specific way. There's differences of opinion of what's considered wiping over them. Some people just do like how they doing wudu. I've even seen people wipe the bottom. Not of leather socks, but of socks. They just basically went over their foot like they was doing wudu. You don't wipe the bottom. Okay? So learn how to wipe over them. What's legislated, what that look like. And again, my advice to people, if you're going to look at madhab rulings, look at that same ruling from all 4 madhabs. You know what I'm saying? Look at what all 4 madhabs say. Okay? Before you go with it. Unless you just in the jam and you got to make a decision right there on the fly. You know what I'm saying? But look at all 4 of them. And then you will start to learn some things like, hold up. And then especially if you're a person who read hadiths, even if you don't, and that's one thing that saved me. I didn't really know the rulings. I didn't really know how to implement them, but I was familiar what was in them. So when I seen things that wasn't in them, I was able to say, hold on. We're the hadith that for this, what y'all doing? Oh, this in our madhab. Okay, alhamdulillah. Show me the book that this is in this madhab in. Because one thing you will start to see, some of these, what I've seen, what I've noticed, some of these masjids that say, okay, this is a Hanafi masjid, this is a this masjid, this is this madhab masjid, and we go by these rulings. But what you will notice is, what I've noticed in the majority of them that I've been in, they didn't have their fiqh books on the shelf. Where are y'all fiqh books for this? Oh, well, in my country, this is just how we always did it, so we brought that and we doing it here. But generally, do you see? But I see where the ones who actually graduates, and they are the ones who run the masjid. Like for instance, IMFC. They both graduates, and they both specialize in Hanbali fiqh. Not saying they only stick to Hanbali fiqh, but they specialize in Hanbali fiqh. They're going to have the books of Hanbali fiqh out there. Zayd al-Mustaqni. You understand? Where they're going to teach from it, and where if a person has some questions, they can show you from it. Which you could get a few volumes of Zayd al-Mustaqni translated into English. You know, for people who into that. So anyway, man, let me get up off here, man. You know, I gotta go ahead and get this prayer in, man. Alhamdulillah. So hopefully, man, this will help. This is just a rule of thumb. Understand fiqh and how they come up with fiqh rulings. And you gotta understand sometimes the fiqh ruling that they came up with might be in accordance with the customs of the people in India. So that might have to be adjusted with the people of America, because it might take you off something. You see what I'm saying? And that's why, like, they speak about Shafi'i all the time. When he lived in one area, he had his madhab, Syria. Then when he left and moved to Egypt, he changed his entire madhab. Okay? When it came to particular rulings, why did he do that? Because the customs of the people changed. So it only changed with the things that you could change that's in accordance with the custom of the people. And that's why I say the ones who laid these rules down and these laws down, they was in Muslim countries. You can't apply the customs of the Kafirs, because a lot of their customs come from paganism. A lot of their customs come from filth. Just like I say, when it's with us who urban people, we're tagged to a hip-hop culture, a drill culture. You know what I'm saying? Just like it cracked me up, cause I'm from out here. I'm gonna say this real quick, and then I'm gonna be done with it. Because I'm an individual. I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it. I hate Chicago. I always hated Chicago. Okay. When we used to run around there, as youngins, Chicago is the most ignorantest place I've ever been. And now I'm starting to see the ignorance of Chicago spread. Okay? Chicago got some of the most senseless, reckless violence. It's always been that way. I don't know Chicago not being that way. So I always hated it. And I'm saying this because I said drill culture. So, because a lot of people don't, drill has two meanings. So there's a drill that you put a little piece in it, and you use a drill to do what? Put holes in something. Okay? A lot of people don't know that. When they be like drill music, this and that. So when you get the drill, so like a coat man, go and get the drill. You finna go get something to put holes in something. Right? So then you had the drill. So when they started saying we finna start drilling, you have like a marching band or something. They used to have these groups where they had they was like ROTC or something, but they had like these wooden rifles, and they be walking and doing this, and they do little tricks and be spinning the rifle and all that stuff. They used to refer to that as drilling. So like drilling also was like we finna go out here practicing, doing a drill, getting it. We finna move in sequence. We finna do a drill so that we could put holes in something. But a lot of people talking about this drill culture, and they don't understand the real essence of what drill really means and drill music. They think drill music is just about dissing the dead. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's those things is the type of culture that we supposed to be tied to. So because that's the common thing, we whatever Islam come with, we can implement that stuff. And I'm saying that because it's starting to infiltrate Islam. And then you got ignorant people, because they from the black side of things, talking about we got our own culture. So to be like that and act like that is to not be Arab. And that is a huge, major mistake. A huge, major mistake. You understand? So now you got Muslims that's involved with the drill culture, But they just think that's some old dissing the dead type stuff when don't even know what's to a drill. And yeah, a drill is something you stick something in and use it to put holes in something. Same thing you use a gun for. So the pole, the pipe, sometimes before that lingo, it was a drill. Man, run in the house and get the drill. It's gun-like in nature. You pull a trigger. So, but that stuff shouldn't override our Islamic culture. And I got to say this last thing, man. My bad, man. I keep talking. I need to go ahead and get off here, man, and make my grid. To show another way how I was lost. So in one of my videos, I was talking about how we used to palms up. So in our tribal, street tribe, doing this, the palms up means I come in peace. Right? And just to show how that ignorance saved me. So like on the little blocks and stuff where cats was hustling and you had all the different gangs out there, but we was, for the most part, on the same side. So it'd be like some Stones, it'd be some Four Corner Hustlers, it'd be a few different branches of the Vice Lords. It would be some black gangsters out there, and it would be a couple of GDs. No BDs, right? But it would be a couple of GDs, a couple, right? So when we used to come out there and we be, like we were coming out there and we did this, like I come in peace, that mean I ain't on that. You know what I'm saying? Any foolishness, I ain't on no foolishness. So like even we know to look like, oh man, a brother come in peace today. You know what I'm saying? I ain't strapped, I ain't none of that, I ain't got no work on me. I just come out here to kick it. We didn't know this meant this is something you do for dua. We didn't know this from the street tribes. So because I thought it was Islam, wallahi, everywhere I went and traveled to different cities, when I got out the car or be in a neighborhood where it would be a whole bunch of people at, I would do this. Right? I'll never forget it. So my first time going to Philly was in 1997. I'm still a young cat, right? So I'm thinking this stuff is real Islam. And I remember as I'm jumping out the car, and I didn't know I ended up being in an area called the Badlands. I didn't know that it was the Badlands. But the people I was with, I ended up talking to some people, and they was telling me where I was at. I was in the Badlands, right? So I'm hopping out, I'm doing this, and people were salaming me and all that. I'm salaming them back because I'm thinking I'm letting them know I come in peace. They thinking I done jumped out and made a dua. So wallahi, when we get to New York, because I'm just passing through Philly. We was in Philly for like a whole day. And then we went to New York, and the car had broke down in Brooklyn. Well, it was a car that broke down in front of us. And it blocked up, it caused a little traffic jam, so we were stuck. So people could start to see we got luggage and stuff all in the back. So, they looking and all this. So I jumped out the little vehicle and did like this. And there happened to be some Muslims there. I'm thinking I'm telling them I come in peace. They thinking I'm making dua. So it happened to be some Muslims around that was like, they kind of waved them off. Because we got all this luggage so they could tell we tourists. And we got out-of-state license plates. Okay? So we get to the projects in Harlem. That's where our destination is, right? So when we get to Harlem, we in the projects. They looking at us with the bags and all that stuff again, right? Like coming to America. When dude left his bags out and they snatched all their luggage. So they looking at the bags and stuff. Wallahi, I get out there, I do the same thing. They thinking that I'm making a dua. So wallahi, people just kept coming up to me saying alhamdulillah. I had never heard alhamdulillah in my life. But something resonated in me that it meant something Islamic. Wallahi, nobody was saying. It was like one or two people that said assalamu alaikum, but like your regular, like 5% type cats, I didn't know what was to them. like they was Muslim, but they wasn't like masjid Muslims. I'll put it that way. They was all just saying alhamdulillah to me. So I just was saying it back, alhamdulillah. But they thought I was making dua. So that little stuff that came from the gang culture as I come in peace, and people it not knowing that it resonate with dua, we just called it palms up. Right? Wallahi. So when I'm in New York, and then when we traveling through, and when I would go somewhere where it would be crowds of people, wallahi, I'd just be like this. Or like if I entered a store and I would do like this, some black people was in it, and wallahi, it would always be somebody in there. Everywhere I went, everywhere I did it, somebody would say, man, alhamdulillah. And they would, wallahi, try to give me free stuff. All type of stuff, man. And in my head, though, I'm thinking that, because I'm thinking that this means palms up, I come in peace. I'm thinking it's real Islam. So because they're receiving me well, I'm thinking that they also think this means real Islam. But they thinking I'm making dua. So that's why they saying alhamdulillah. All praises due to Allah. But I didn't even have it in me to ask them, what do alhamdulillah mean? So I remember after I stayed in New York for a minute, and I just kept saying alhamdulillah or whatever, right? When I came back here and people was just saying something, or they would do like this, I'd be like alhamdulillah. I didn't even know what it meant. They ain't either. They'd be like, man, what's that you saying? They'd be like, man, I was like, man, I said alhamdulillah. They was like, what do you mean? I was like, man, that's what you say to people that do this. I thought that was real Islam. And the only reason why it came back to my head, because I seen this guy, he hang with the Muslims, and he go to O Block. You know, I watch a lot of Chicago stuff, especially when they deal with the Muslims. So he went to O Block with the Muslim guy, because you know a lot of the people. O Block is really the name of the projects is Parkway Gardens. So it's just the middle section that's O Block. It's not the whole entire project. So that middle section of O Block, the majority of people in that section is Muslim. It's not the whole entire project like people think that never been there. So that's why I be saying some people that be Muslim and then they be going to the project thinking it's all good, and they get stuck up because they think it's everybody Muslim. No, it's just that little middle section, that little bit of area, those little couple of little buildings is O Block, not the whole entire project. So they took dude in there, and you know he was really one of their enemies, but he coming to make peace. So they getting ready to get the fighting, and you know some shooting and stuff about to transpire. So he decided to leave. So the Muslim brother, like, because they Muslim, but everybody with them not Muslim. So the Muslim brother's like, hold on, man, he with me, man. Can't y'all see he palms up? He palms up. And I couldn't do nothing but laugh. This was just a couple of months ago. I couldn't do nothing but laugh because I'm like, man, they still teaching that. But he come from one of the street tribes. So then I seen the other dude who got into the incident. He went to go do an interview at No Jumper. So he was on No Jumper, and he was like, they was asking him why did he leave, you know, was it about to go up? And he explaining the situation. So then he says, well, you know, I ain't think it was going to get like that because I was palms up. Right? This was just a couple of months ago. So now because he said that, guess what people starting to say? That they was palms up. Because they done heard a Chicago person say it, not knowing where it come from. And now I'm starting to hear certain little people in different interviews and stuff talking about they was palms up, or the brother wasn't palms up when he came. And it just blow my mind. So ain't no telling how far it's going to go in the next few years. But alhamdulillah, it saved me, because I'm going, like I said, wallahi, I'm in the projects of New York City, man, in Harlem. And I did this, man, and people was like, man, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And they treated me a little different. So then when I started going back to New York and staying up there and really moving around, like later on, and now I know this is with dua, and I know this don't mean no palms up, no gang culture stuff. I laughed at myself, man. That miseducation, man, could be something else. So, man, my bad for letting this get too long. I just had to tell that little story. Inshallah, man, y'all could take what y'all could take from this to understand fiqh. This is just a general conversation to get you to understand when it comes to fiqh, you do still have to be careful, and you got to know, just like the imams from those madhabs said, don't take from my ruling unless you know what was the basis and the sources of the ruling that I made. You know what I'm saying? Was it my opinion? Was it me doing qiyas? Was it in accordance with the custom of the people? It wasn't necessarily Quran and Sunnah. This is just what the majority of the people was doing, so we made it easy for the people. So that's just something. So when people get to asking questions, you really got to know who you asking. And like I said, you got to be lenient with people, because some people's in a situation because they just went to, this was the first masjid they went to. Or this just happened to be a Muslim who he was cool with or she was cool with. You know, generally she likes some guy. Sometimes he's already in prison. She likes some guy in prison. He's Muslim. She accepts Islam to be with him, and he just might happen to be Salafi. Which, when you outside of Illinois, it always seemed like, and that's something that don't click in their head. Not a knock to them and not a judgment. Why all the Muslims that you meet in prison is Salafi? What are they doing in there? They was Salafi when they got locked up. Was they on the minhaj? But I ain't gonna do that. Why all of them in prison? But so that's the only thing they ever heard. That's all they know. Not saying Salafiyah ain't the minhaj. It's just what some people pushing in the name of Salafiyah, and people following them is what's dangerous. So anyway, man, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Be lenient with the Muslims, man, until you figure out what they understand. And if they don't want to accept anything, and that's the haq, you don't have to hate them. Cool, alhamdulillah. You still Muslim to me. Now, if I'm not Muslim to you, that's your choice. But you always going to get your rights from me. You know what I'm saying? Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.